Well, greetings, everybody. You're watching MBTV News, also occasionally known as Meta World News, but it's Zapier with MBTV, isn't it? It's my initials too, so it's easier. Right, we look at virtual worlds and immersive spaces online, destinations, arts, and sort of well, news of what's going on and haptics and things like that. We don't really cover any particular virtual world platform. Not on this show, we don't. Though we do have our favourites, which we broadcast from elsewhere. Right, my name is Mal Burns, and yeah, I'm known as Mal Burns.
Hmm.
Occasionally known as Mal Burns, writer from some very old virtual world. I seem to have forgotten his name offhand. Something to do with second or third places. Anyway, I'm joking. Um, Joined also here by James Atloud, who's fiddling with knobs as he's prone to do. He's also prone to sitting, which he's also doing, and he will have a chat now and again. The knobs he's fiddling with, lest you be misled, concern the level of audio and the scenes of video and the inserts and the things like that. Those are what his knobs control. So, welcome, welcome, James.
Hello,
And
Mal.
welcome, welcome, Pussy too. He's on the
Yep.
other side here.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't really have a camera on him, but he's
Oh,
happy.
I've got a
He's
camera
got a
for her.
couple.
There they
He's
are.
got a couple. Yeah, he's got a couple of twins actually who seem to have appeared on our booth at an event called the Hypergrid International Expo.
Ah.
So, ah, but they aren't squeaking properly yet. I don't know what I've done about the sound. I put the squeak in them, but they ain't squeaking. So,
Mm.
for me, I need just somebody else to do it.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, as I say, we deal with virtual worlds, immersive spaces online. Now, traditionally, I tell you, you can follow me on Twitter. Um, Mal Burns, MALBURNS, one word squashed, at twitter.com. Um, Technically, that's now at x.com. And I can't tweet at the moment, so, and it also is making it very difficult for me to X. So I can't tweet it, and I can't exit, except that actually exit is precisely what I'm doing. So there are a combination of two Mastodon feeds, basically replacing that feed at Twitter or Xer or exercise or exercise it from my mind, please. Right.
Mm.
um, yeah. The musketeer has stuck his musket up my arse. I think I can't do anything there. Right. Let's get this then. If you use Mastodon, right, you can follow me at Mal Burns at mastodon.social. And that will is where I post video feeds and things like that, video news.
And
You
I
can
don't
all
have that as a lower third. You haven't given me that one, so.
oh right. Have you got the one that is not Vibellum indeed, Vivaldi?
I do. Yep.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll put that on the lower third for you folks at home. That is effectively the news links that end up at Twitter. They now go there first, and one keeps one's fingers crossed that the Musketeer allows the relay of those links to go through. Um, uh, Depending on the rules of the day, kind of thing. It seems to change the rules every day. So there's a combination of at Mal Burns at VivaldiNet is one, and the other one is whew, where's it gone? Um, Here we are at MetaWorld at mastodon.social, which is where the video feeds are, which we'll be coming to later in the show. So if you follow me there, or you can still follow me on Twitter as long as it allows it, then you know anything I mentioned here, you can click on the links and get straight through. And often that's an advantage because the links give you on air are often front pages, and you by clicking the links in the feed, you'll obviously go to the exact page in question. Anyway, my introduction has lasted more than the news itself, I think, so I better get
Mm.
on with it. Pretty little picture here, I thought. You know, this is visually impressive, but you don't want to be around it, do you?
No.
But it's not your imagination. The weather is bonkers right now. We've got 2 summer days now. Summer's almost over, I think. How are the wildfires north of you, James? Are they
Oh, they're
still?
they're they're burning. They're
I
burning
know they're
really
both.
good. Yeah.
But I got the impression they're more western now, so you might not be getting so
Well,
much.
and not so much the United States, but Canada. Poor Canada. The
Oh
Northwest
yeah,
Territories are just
yeah.
just burning up. Right.
Yeah, and they're evacuating whole towns that are
Mm-hmm.
like they're 200 miles from civilization,
Right.
apparently,
Right.
with one road in and out. Yes, yeah, very worrying. They've eased off in Europe, I think, and I think just England's an island, but Hawaii got it. So, I mean,
Yeah.
who knows? It's just somebody drops a lit match on parched ground, and the country burns. Anyway, yes, not good stuff. Not good stuff. You don't know whether you don't know whether you want to boil or whether you want to drown. It's sort of the endless search for the place that doesn't get drowned or burnt. I think. No wonder there's so many refugees, but it's just sad. But that is one of the problems. Okay, okay. Getting on with that, I do have one other picture. I can't resist the old picture. Um, because this is a piece of news. There's no blog to point you to make a big stand or anything, but symptomatic at the times. Disney have lost their Metaverse chief. Yes, there you go. He's departed shortly after the division he was put in charge of actually closed down itself. So, Michael White, not the other Michael White, the Michael White was appointed early last year to spearhead the company's metaverse ambitions, and what ambitions they were. I think they better stick to Star Trek and Marvel on television. They're
Disney
probably
does not
better.
own Star Trek. Don't go down that path.
Hang on, just hang on. They do Marvel.
Yeah, they do Marvel and Star Wars.
Star Wars ones, right?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, well, my goof, but it's
Star
Star
Trek
Wars.
has its own evil overlords.
Yeah, yeah. I know. I get them confused. But I don't get the shows confused. It's just a similar names.
Right.
Star Trek, Star Wars, Star Invasion, Star Blah, Stars on Screen, film stars.
Stars on Mars.
Um, Put a star on an item in your feed to keep it for later, read
Right.
later.
Right.
Yeah, lots of stars.
A blue check. Put a
Okay,
blue check on your
and
blog.
I was playing a wonderful song that references the stars on Hollywood Boulevard. It
Mm.
was an old Kinks song called Hollywood Boulevard or something. I think. Oh no, Celluloid Heroes. That's the name of the song.
Yep.
Wonderful song. No, Ray Davis songwriter. Let's get on with this. I've also got an active SoundCloud working here, so if I really want to, I can say hello to the live audience that isn't here.
Yep.
But I'm saving it for special occasions. I will rely on the sounds of James for this show. So moving across to our readers. Okay. First link of the week is actually one from Monday, which is, we always start with. It's actually the scarredghost.com, or Scarred Ghost, he calls himself. Real name Anthony Vitillo, and but the Scarred Ghost, that's the name of his blog, and it's the name of our sound effect. See? We ain't just about cats.
That's right.
Okay, so Tony Vitello. His roundup of the week, which of course is the week, not the week just gone by, but the week before that. But it's a good roundup. All the roundups we put here are good places to check out, and this one in particular would be good to go to tomorrow, for example, because that's when he will update it. Or occasionally, it doesn't happen till June. Anyway, Meta 2024 glasses only for internal use. That was his headline thing. Apparently, Meta, otherwise known as, better not say that word, they've spent an awful lot of money on a new advanced augmented reality glasses, but it costs so much to make that they can't possibly sell them. So they're giving away a limited edition, I guess, to devs or what, or media or something or other. Anyway, also, it was Scar Ghost blog's anniversary during the week.
Oh.
I think it is 7 years now. So he did a blog post about that, but he says here, he says tomorrow, so I think it was Wednesday was the appropriate day. Various other people have said happy anniversary, so we'll get to that as we get to it. A leak has shown a prototype of Samsung's headset, and other relevant news. Um, schematics of glasses, of course. Meta Reality Labs. Well, yes, it figures that that would be in a disintegrated form, doesn't it? Right. The, okay, just for internal use, those glasses will be. Seagraph was on. We mentioned this last week. He's got a little bit of roundup of things you noticed there, and more meta. That it really doesn't matter what's Meta's doing. It's my thought, but some people, think that Meta will rule the world, and if we're not careful, they probably will. So, yeah, maybe it does matter to some people. I don't know, four-letter words and all that. Okay, so you find this at scarredghost.com. That's SKARREDGHOST.com. What else, really? Right, let's put that one away and move on down. Virtualitytimes.com, another regular site we look at when it's in the mood for doing its thing. There we go. Right, they're looking at immersed. We mentioned this last week. Immersed new visor. Their next gen XR work focused headset inspired by Vision Pro. It didn't take long to get inspired by Vision Pro, did it? Okay, it's quite elegant looking, but it is a workforce. It's not cheap. It's designed for commerce and industry, whatever, the workplace rather than the home computer. They describe it as the ultimate spatial computing device for work. And I must say, it looks quite well. It actually looks more, I suppose being for work, they wanted it to look a bit more like something civilized rather than a really great helmet. Anyway, it's no, it's a visor really, so it's the immersed visor, and this basically is just a review of specifications and all that stuff. These do tend to come along. Um, oh, right, we're not going to do this because it's just frozen, doesn't it? This is 22 minutes, so there's no way we're going to look at the whole bit. That's the reason I didn't download it. Yeah, we don't need that either. Right, so they're going to go on about it, of course, but it's their prerogative, I guess. So if you want to watch that in full, 22 minutes talking about the glasses, well, there you go, you can. More than a VR headset, and yeah, this is really a pretty extensive promo for the headset as well, although it is a bona fide review. So you'll find this at virtualrealitytimes.com. That's all one word, virtualrealitytimes.com. And three long words is too much for me to read out. I'm sure you can get that, or you can follow the link on my feed. Right, okay, moving on. Okay, this is a site called the Metaculture Co. I've got a feeling, I'm not entirely sure if I didn't get another copy of this on last week's show, but they talk about change and opportunity in virtual reality use on stage and screen. We did show another clip, I know, which had the designs and stuff that was being worked on, but this is uh, more of a view of a new trend, so to speak. They mentioned the labour strike in Hollywood rages on, and a new art form gains sophistication. But apparently, most of the SFX artists who well, I don't know if it's strictly VR film, but the people who make the 3D special effects for Marvel and a load of others actually joined the Hollywood strike. So it's not as though Hollywood could plow ahead using well, they might be able to find an AR that will mimic something. I don't know for sure, but I wouldn't say they can bank on the labour strike being a bonus for VR film. But you never know how these things turn out. It means an awful lot of stuff being cancelled at the moment anyway, which probably people probably won't, in America at least, and imports to Britain. We probably won't notice it for about a year, because of the
Hmm.
delay in production, post production, and stuff like that. It's actually it's I describe it as infernally slow, but you could say that about global warming. I think it's far too fast, even though it does take some years to change things. Anyway, yeah, don't want to go there. Not on this program, anyway. So, an immersive theatre star helps lead the charge with the Hollywood labour strike. Um, don't know really. VR theatre wouldn't be affected by the strike because theatre is a very different thing from cinema. But if they're going for VR film, I don't think you know. Um, the strikers are loud. They don't want people, even though they're technically in the different sphere, sort of doing things would diminish the strike, so to speak. Anyway, who knows? They've also got a video here. Again, it's not one I've embedded. This is a consumer electronics show, 50 minutes in fact, and reluctant to load by the look of it, so I'm not going to bother. Oh, what's going on?
Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us for the third and final session in our CES track, Future Shock, the Tech and Trends Changing Entertainment. I am pleased to present to you the moderator of our next panel on the metaverse. Duncan Crabtree Ireland is the National Executive Director and Chief Negotiator for SAG-AFTRA, in which role he leads and oversees our negotiations
about this next panel, and we have some amazing panelists.
All right. It's very hard with this to give
Yeah.
you an idea without actually playing a substantial bit of it. That's
Some of the
the
success.
that's the little splash for it anyway, showing who was actually on the panel there. And if you want to look up this article, it's at themetaculture.co. So THEMETACULTURE.co. And you can obviously play this video when you get there, or indeed just click through like mine to YouTube and watch it there, or maybe subscribe to them if you think it's good stuff. Um, right, yeah. Yeah, stage and screen basically. They're looking at immersive theatre here. That doesn't look that looks like a VR thing rather than theatre, but it does make sense. I think if you read it, I can't say I've got a feeling this is one thing I tagged and didn't actually read the whole thing. VR chat short films, for example. I mean, it makes you wonder: is machinima to me is in the name machinima? In fact, makes sort of machine animation, machine characters, etc., to be their form of animation, which in turn is a form of cinema, which in turn they use voice actors and things like that. It's not totally divorced from the things that people are striking about. So you know. It would be sad if we got lots of special effects and lots of machinima and lots of AI painted films and voice actors hired from the back end of nowhere and basically still go through the picket line. I don't know. So interesting stuff always happens anyway, and I guess it happens as much in times when some people are not moving, other people are. Um, Lots of these are coming from VR chat, by the way, which is very. I kind of don't go there very much, but I kind of like it. It's off center. It's not owned by, a mega corporation. It's just a successful um, little program. It's got some of the best things of say Second Life. It's got other things that are, you know, um, much more their thing. Um, so anyway, yes. So the Metaculture Co. To get hold of that article. Okay, and of course, if you can catch my feeds, there is a link in there to that article. Okay, moving down again. This is medium.com. Now, one of my Mastodon feeds actually is at Medium because they actually on a Fediverse server. So they, I don't know, I think it's Mal Burns at me, M-E, dot D-M. So the tagline for them is, well, you get it, me, D-M, yeah. Anyway, this is at Medium, the site proper, and exploring African XR realities lab, bridging the gap between puppetry and virtual reality. It just another interesting thing, you know. One of the fun things doing this show, especially as the news gets, you know, I don't like repeating news and stuff, is that you know something comes along and you think that's interesting. Firstly, the merging of puppetry and virtual reality here, but also the fact that it's you know South Africa. The lab is based in Cape Town, and you know it's the cohorts consist of talented individuals from both Egypt, Democratic Republic of Congo, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, Uganda, and Zimbabwe, thus encompassing a diverse range of artistic disciplines, including filmmaking, game development, multimedia, artistry, fashion design, and the author's own expertise as an actress and puppeteer. And there they are. Oh, aren't they so cute there? uh, doesn't my zoomer doesn't work, but never mind. There they are, African XR. What's it? Realities. Realities, is that right? Yeah, Realities Lab. That was it. Yeah, so bits of interesting stuff, motivation and vision. It's a sort of oh, there's a more familiar thing, the meta movie. Yeah, looking at all of it really, even the puppetry here. So fascinating article. One that you know, if you want to read about something different being done in virtual reality and allied fields, then that is a good little thing to have a read of. Quite long too, as you probably gathered there from the scrolling. Right, moving on to xrtoday.com, another regular site, xrtoday.com. Simple question, really. I mean, it's a question that arises every so often, but given the fact that it's not just the headsets and the VR sickness that was reported at 4, but it does depend. They're wondering whether the percentage of VR sickness, or you know, the people like me actually, that we put a helmet on and feel really weird. You know, after more than 20 seconds, you want to get it off. Because it's almost too immersive and you lose some of the cues in the real world. That affects a lot of people, and as in the enterprise particular, you know, where VR is slowly becoming a fairly indispensable tool for scientists. You know, like molecular scientists can do stuff in virtual reality and you know zoom into molecules that the human eye can never see and work with a craft. You know. The thing is, however good their craft is and however good the VR renditions are, the very fact of wearing the helmet can make some people feel a bit sick. And so, you know, the issue of whether in the enterprise, you know, monitors will slowly be phased out and people will start wearing headsets, or of course, Apple, of course, dream of the enterprise moving, you know, that way too. The, this article basically is asking the question is whether the percentage of people who suffer from VR sickness, which is quite high, will actually have an effect on the rollout of headsets to replace monitors in places where that actually is proving desirable, laboratories and things like that, where you know it's much preferable to have somebody in a headset than to have them peering down, you know, microscopes, you know, like binoculars to their eyes and things on slides and stuff. I mean, a lot of it's done with digital microscopes and things like now, but obviously to actually work within a headset for that kind of thing is a bonus if you can do it without getting ill. So anyway, interesting article at xrtoday.com, xrtoday.com. Moving on down the list to the same site, xrtoday.com, but this is actually their weekly roundup. And like Scar Ghost and Charlie Forbes, Charlie Fink, sorry, Charlie Forbes. It might as well be Charlie Forbes.
Oh, okay.
We get the roundups of the week, and this one is xrtoday.com. And the big news from Pico, Meta, Microsoft, and Samsung. And I can't say there's anything exclusive to this site that hasn't popped up in some of the other links or feeds, but it's, as far as later in the week is concerned, this is a pretty good roundup of the week. I think it's probably Friday that this came out. I'm trying to recall it, but it's a sort of end of the week thing. And the yeah, let's see, mixed reality capture app. Yeah, all about Pico mostly here. The four-letter word has brought its CTO to the screen to explain why Quest's reach is limited. Oh, really? Andrew Bolsworth again. Okay, he spoke on the current standing of MetaQuest and its limited availability. So they're phasing it out in favour of what, the expensive one that they can only make 1,000 of? I don't know.
Nope, just the opposite.
It doesn't really matter. Sorry, it doesn't really matter, does it? Right. That's my new phrase. Nothing really matters. There's a song. I've got a video for that, but it needs to be re-recorded with Meta instead of Matter. Right. No, see, don't know. HoloLens 3. Yeah, looking at more Samsung leaks. That was in another blog too. But anyway, another good place to get a roundup. xrtoday.com. xrtoday.com. And moving down. To Virtual Reality Times again. This is three words as one, virtualrealitytimes.com. And they're looking at virtual reality being applied in job training, not so much in the workplace, but actually training people. And of course, it really depends what you're training them. And just as the molecular scientist probably gains from being in a headset to, do his research and calculations, where you get down to the molecular level, if not some molecular. That is great, but I mean, you can put an average kid off the street on a work placement or apprenticeship into one of their helmets and expect him to know what he's doing. So they also reckon that VR is the best way to actually train young people and things like that. It doesn't particularly say here with the picture exactly what they're training that guy to do, but it looks to me something to do with engineering and machinery, because he's just looking at the thing in thin air, and you can get, so imagine a motor car engine, horrible things, okay, gasoline fumes everywhere, but people who get it breaks down and somebody opens the lid of the car and they got to go in and poke around in all the muck and figure out this and figure out that and stick their nose into dirty places to figure out if there's something wrong with that bit or that bit. And of course, if you've got that engine built in high definition digital file that you can examine in virtual reality, you can actually move your eyes, you can zoom in to the microscopic parts of the engine to check that the cogs and the wheels and things are all working as you want them to. Whereas in the real world, some of these are actually so microscopical, you've obviously, when they're being built and everything is fresh and clean and not filled with oil, they're probably double checked, but being able to actually go in and find faults in things by actually having, the ideal unspot replica in VR next to you, and then compare it with the real world thing you're trying to fix or whatever. So, but I always find these articles just interesting because, we all know VR is used in training these days and very well, but, people think of particular instances of that training, but in fact, you keep stumbling across these blogs which say, oh, they're using it for that too, and well, I don't know about you, but I get sort of excited thinking they're doing, their architects are using it, even bricks and mortar builders use it now. I know VR is actually going to lay the brick and cement for you, but I mean the planning and of the sites and things. So great stuff. So virtual reality is being applied in job training. So there you go. Of the many jobs it could be. Initial pioneer, by the way, was Walmart. So I don't think I'd want to work at Walmart whether I got virtual reality training or not, to be honest. But eventually everybody that can do it will be doing it because of the money savings and everything else like that. Oh, quoting Germany Belson from Stanford, Human Virtual Interaction Lab, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, quite a lot to read there, on that subject. Obviously, it doesn't vary from that subject. It's particularly to do with job training. So, virtualitytimes.com for that one. Moving on down, this is the other site that comes out just after the Exotic Day one every weekend. It's posted at Forbes, and I'm actually accessing it through my reader here. But if I was actually trying to show you the website, I would be stuck. They won't let me in because it's behind a paywall. For some reason, my reader gets around it, which is wonderful. But if you subscribe to Forbes, or can get in behind their paywall, you get this article every week. And actually, Charlie Fink actually writes a lot of other articles during the week on, tech trends and things like that at Forbes. You can also, I forget what the other link is, but most weeks this actually is republished at, I don't think it's XR Today, it's one of the other sites. And it's a couple of days later, but then you can read it without worrying about the firewall of Forbes, the paywall they call it. Anyway, he's looking at Paris Hilton's metaverse and Venice immersive. A lot of stuff came up. I couldn't possibly show it all from Venice immersive this week. Basically, it seemed to me like all the VR films and projects that would be showing at the festival in Venice seem to have been uploaded to YouTube as well by the festival, so it's almost as good as being there. And I've only watched a few of them that I had time to watch. So it's like you need to put them in the playlist and enjoy a day at the festival to see them all or something. Anyway, Charlie Fink latches onto that. SXSW last year, of course, the metaverse having its moment. That's where Paris Hilton, that's her name, isn't it, was paid to promote Sandbox, which was another virtual world. Should have bypassed me, really. Oh, yeah. The Zook Musk cage fight is over. More importantly, it didn't happen. It's not over. The World Cup is over and Spain beat us this morning, but the Zook Musk cage fight hasn't happened. It's hardly over. But did anybody seriously think they were going to get together to do that? I don't know. Oh, God, and look at the twerp. Right. Stare into the mirror and tell me what you see. Oh, I think it's got Emperor Zuckerberg. He's floating around with an American flag on a submarine. Top of a submarine, I think, because it's sticking into the wall. What is that?
It's called a hoverboard. It's a type of ski device. And
right.
you pump up and down on it, and it propels you through the water.
Right, so maybe old Musk should get one of those, and they could have a race down the river instead.
They could race down the Potomac. Right.
Right, time is running out for Facebook. They're going to have to cough up that 725 million data privacy. They haven't got a leg to stand on, but they're on the last week to try and file an appeal or whatever. No code for the enterprise. These are all just launches of particular things. Sapito, free social media app, I think. Okay, I think that's the site I actually looked at some point and thought nothing there for me, quite frankly. Yeah, but anyway, it's quite a good roundup for this Charlie Fink always. So between Charlie Fink, XR Today, and the Wheat Peak at the beginning of the week from Scarlet Ghost, these are three sites that can pretty much give you a good idea of what's going on. That looks absolutely delicious. A narration by Neil Gaiman as well. So for somebody else's, Jim Henson's storyteller. Good. That's the old Muppets. Jim Henson was Muppets, amongst other things. Right, Wallace and Gromit. Well, that's not quite the Muppets, is it? But they're very famous too, Aardman. Yep. Animation there over in the UK, or they were. This is where they started. The Grand Getaway is from Atmosphere, most successful, trusted VR producers. They push the tech and they have great taste. So good little roundup here. These are, of course, examples from Venice Immersive. And something else is embedded here. I didn't Right, this was a separate blog from That's the Skull Ghost there again, Tony Vitillo. And yeah, no gifts, please. He's been at it for 7 ... Like that one. Yeah, anyway, 7th anniversary of the Skull Ghost blog. So let's give it a hoot, shall we? Well, that sounded like a car revving up. We could have given it a hoot, couldn't we? In that sort. What else can I give it? What else can I give it that is nice and short? Yeah, that would do. See? There's another thing on my. Okay, you want to be like that?
She's not a girl who misses much.
I think I. Oh, that's Happiness is a Warm Gun. Yeah, no, great old song, Beatles song there. But this wasn't what I wanted. I think I was going to go for the Thunderstorm. Anyway, toys, folks. We love being on air with our toys. Wait till I find some really spectacular things supporting that. Actually, I realised recently that using Stream Deck, you could actually sequence a whole playlist for a radio show, and just play them by playing the being the DJ and just playing the song, saying here's the next and playing that, etc., which I'm thinking may actually be very useful if I just want to fill in 10 minutes at shows between talks or something. So, but more on that if it happens, I guess. Okay, so congratulations to Tony Vitillo, of course, and the Skull Ghost and blah, blah, blah. Then that's the credits. Okay, now next one. Well, it's the last actual link of the week. The site is learn.framevr.io. Now, those of you who know web-based worlds, XR worlds and things like that, probably the Mozilla's hubs was probably the first of its ilk, really, but very popular, especially among developers at the moment, and for quite a while actually, is one called Frame. And they've just issued what they call an epic update, which sounds like it is, because it can now support 1,000 users at once in not the real time is referring to real time reflections that they brought in, basically graphical interface improvements, scale, performance, graphics, creator tools, and more. And of course, 1,000 users at once. The difficulty with that is finding out when there's going to be 1,000 users there, so that I can go in and check that they're not lying. It's you'll go to one of these things and yeah, they can hold 1,000 people, and then you go in, there's only 2. It doesn't really give you an editorial sort of chance of review, does it? But I'm sure they'll do something or other. So the new era of the web, etc. And Frame is one of the creator tools in the ecosystem, giving people a way to build immersive social sites that work on both the desktop, mobile, VR, and in Apple's upcoming Vision Pro. Obviously, a lot of talk about Apple's Vision Pro, mostly about this price, of course, but although it's not a VR device, any VR or immersive world type of thing that runs on the web, WebXR, is going to be compatible because they've optimized it for Safari and browsing and things like that. So if your world is on a web page, the Apple machine is going to be the best you can get, I suspect, for viewing and working in the particular world in question. Anyway, they're talking about new highlights, things changed under the hood, the map editor, everything else like that, and that's a screenshot of them. Again, rather like hubs, and Vibella too. People come in. Oh, this is bots, of course. People come in to attend the conference, and they grab the 6 avatars available on the shelf, and before you know it, you feel like you're walking in a world full of zombies that all look the same. Well, 6 variations of the same. But these are apparently bots doing the actual number testing. So we did a similar thing to this in OpenSim with the OpenSim Community Convention some years ago. I mean, it's a 4-sim region, and the chap who was running the OpenSim at the time, so to speak, brought in loads and loads of bots to prove that we could actually populate the place with I don't know, about 1,000 bots or something. I don't know what it was. That, of course, is very different from the real event, where you've got to remember that every character is actually a real person. They're doing their own real activities, which are not the same as the person sitting next to them, and they also carry around different weight on the platform. For example, somebody is heavily dressed with costumes that are not economic on size or lag. Sort of a combination of a whole lot of little things can actually affect the ability of 1,000 avatars to be in one place in time. But it has been done fairly successfully. I don't think it was 1,000, but Philip Roaster and High Fidelity, when it was going, held a very big event, and I was at it, and it ran flawlessly, really, and it was, well into the multi-hundreds of avatars there, including live musicians, people talking, and got a film of it somewhere. We'll have to revisit at some point. Anyway, yeah, so talking about themselves and whatever. And they do say the open source 3D development framework they use, it comes from Microsoft, Babylon JS, so it may be a Microsoft product, but it is actually open source for using. So I suppose we should commend Microsoft for that small mercy. Yeah, so they do go on to tell you about all that in detail. So a good read. It's actually probably a rather enlightening read for anybody who wants to develop worlds and stuff like that, whether or not you intend to use Frame or not, because these platforms are not, especially if they're based on a web layer underneath, they're not altogether that different. Some are just more advanced and fully fleshed out than others, but many of them use very similar sort of JavaScript constructs underneath, and this looks rather nice, I must say. So that's all very good. So a few links at the end. They have a Discord channel, and you can. Oh yeah, by the way, I said it was open source. If you go to Frame VR.io, you can download it for free and then start building your stuff. And they've got a support site, of course, too. So that's it for the old linky boos, as we say, except for the one I have at the bottom of the list for every week is Voices of VR, the podcast. And it's been quiet for a few weeks, but I'm afraid today, this week is made up for it.
Okay.
Several thousand more blogs on one day, podcasts on one day. Kinfolk app, is looking at particular apps in this batch, really. It's an augmented reality archive of Black history with digital monuments and speculative features. Remember, these are all interviews with the creators of the things we're mentioning. Before that, from Book to Play for an AR installation called Coloured, The Forgotten History of Segregation. You can see there's a bit of a theme here. Separate products, different theme. Translating one-to-one experimental theatre into 360 video, etc. Experiential design of reimagined, stylized and mythic stories. However, Tribeca Games, obviously it's to do with the festival, where their creator recaps the 2023 selection of indie games. Branching narrative architecture of The Expanse. Now this, I have to say, is one of, and James agrees with me, I know this, we talked about this at the time, The Expanse was possibly the best television science fiction story going. It's over now after about 5 series, but it was great, really.
Yep. Oh, really good.
Yeah. Anyway, Telltale series is a 5-part 2D narrative game series now. It's actually a prequel to the Amazon TV and book series. So Ken Bai, who hosts the podcast, of course, says he got a chance to play the 90-minute episode at the Tribeca Games Festival, and then unpacked it with the game director. So I might even take up playing a game. You never know. Depends where it comes from.
Right.
Smartphone Orchestra, they must be fun. Pirate Queen game narrative wins the Tribeca Prize. And how are we doing on dates here? Now, still on August the 15th. It's all this week. See what I mean? May of the Birth animation uses mythic symbols and magical realism to explore menstrual taboos. The origin story of Pixel Ripped, 1978. Gosh golly. Um, yeah. And right, I'm going to the next page because yes, there's even more, all within the last week. Poetic generative AI film, In Search of Time. Monsterama, a narrative game using mixed reality. Monsters. Beneath the Mirrors of Ethics, Pepper's ghost technique to represent indigenous ancestors. Oh, that's interesting. Just too much of interest. I don't know how Kempai finds it. Well, of course, he does. This blog doesn't come up for several weeks, and it makes up for it in total volume. Fortune using AR filters to tell spatial stories about money and facilitate social media conversations. That could be interesting. Depends what attitude they take to money, of course. Um, the Fury combines 2-channel video with 360 video to explore memories of sexual assault. A bit depressing, but probably very worthy. The Void's Curtis Tickman on his book Hyperreality, The Art of Designing Impossible Experiences. And actually, looky here. I thought that was familiar. That was on August the 3rd. So, as you can see, quite a few of them listed there. So to check these out, of course, go to voicesofvr.com, voicesofvr.com. And do remember, this is one of those podcasts that seems to be available on literally every single platform you could want. If you've got Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever, just type in Voices of VR and find it. And if you subscribe that way, I can't promise you they'll come up a bit more slowly, but you'll have a playlist you can play through at your leisure, kind of thing. Okay, so that was that. So finally, I'm moving to my second. We put the thing up on the lower third earlier for my Mastodon feed for Vivaldi one. That's the one that replaces my Twitter text feed. The video embeds, which also end up on the same Twitter feed, actually come from a different Mastodon thing. Sorry, I meant to show these at the beginning and I completely forgot. So I've also got a couple of offline clips before I get to the embeds from the day. This one is actually from by and from a friend of mine, Leah Lobo, who's in OpenSim, but this is actually a game simulation kit that she's been working on in Second Life, in fact. Though in many ways, when you look at things like this, it doesn't really matter which of those platforms it's actually on. Ooh, he's playing jerky jerky. Example, principally a teaching kind of environment, as you can sort of tell. And this is basically just a glorified slideshow. But I thought we should show it because it's there. If you look it up, Game Simulation Kit in Second Life, you will find the full thing on YouTube. Right, this is a hardware thing from actually I think yesterday or the day before. This is interesting. It's called iWear Beam, and it's a webcam edition. It's actually an eye tracker, but you don't need a headset. It basically works with your camera and things and figures out your eye. Well, works with your eye. Let's have a look. Maybe the video will explain it better than I can. So I mean, I think I could work with something like that. It is literally, I've already got the webcam. You know, basically it's just software mostly, although probably a special webcam or whatever. It strikes me as something like Leap Motion when it came out. The fact that for somebody who works on a 2D screen most of the time without a helmet or whatever, you know, I better use my hands to flip around and make gestures and things. And in this case, it's eye tracking. You know, you move your eyes to look out the corner of your eye to the left, and the camera and world moves to the left, and you do the same, and it moves back to the right, or it can just stay focused on in the center where you're walking or running or driving or whatever the hell you're doing. Yeah, so I thought that was quite interesting, and basically it didn't make it very clear in the video. It says it works with hundreds of cameras and everything else like that, but apparently if you want a game or anything else like that, that actually supports it, apparently everything at Steam that you download from Steam, everything supports this. Right, so you get any Steam game you could use with this, but it sounds to me that almost any virtual environment, it's basically adding you know, beyond your mouse and your arrow keys and the various things you might well use, it's you know, it's adding hand gestures and eye gestures into the equation to make things more immersive. And so for somebody working on a flat screen, which I think a lot of us do, you know, you can get good immersion on the flat screen. You just suspend disbelief and dive on in. I mean, I've known people who panic when they actually see the cartoons in virtual reality are actually real people, you know. They think somehow it's a game where they're playing in a cartoon game, and then suddenly they realise they're surrounded by other people and they can't handle that. A particular kind of person does not want to be in the centre of a room with real people, you know, and they want to get out immediately, but they panic, right? And they forget that all they've got to do is do the quit button or teleport elsewhere. The panic is so strong that they forget the remedy. And that isn't in a headset, that's just on a simple 2D screen. The immersion has been so strong, even on the full screen view, that, you know, the panic sets in and they forget how easy it is. They just pull the plug if you can't think of anything else to do. But some people don't. So interesting. Interesting that. Right. Okay, I think I had something else here that I was... Oh yeah, a final thing. I hinted at this one earlier. If you're into travels around virtual worlds and things like in OpenSim, we do a thing called Hypergrid Safari. You know, checking out new locations and things all the while. The VR Chat has a similar thing where it's a video program where they, well, there's a video program. I think there's lots more that aren't filmed. Where they check out different locations, you know, and travel around as a group. Now, there's one here. I'm actually going to drop the volume on this because I really don't need it. This one, Ninja World, yeah. This actually is called Sansar Voyage, and this is episode 31. And as you can see, they have sponsors. Now, they film this in 3D headsets, so you can really get the feeling of what people in those headsets do. They tend to move around awfully quickly, and there's a lot of other inane talk with the radio host. This chap here is Loki, I forget his second name, is big in Second Life and Sansar, and kind of does the hosting bit there. But these are regular things, and if you're quite into looking at this going on, I mean, a lot of people are into watching VR games, aren't they? On Twitch and things, and so if you're more interested in I thought I muted, but I didn't, did I? If you are, you know, interested in exploring and seeing what's around as opposed to watching a game or something, then this series is pretty good. There are a few interface things showing, but it's very difficult to hide things in an actual 3D helmet filming there compared with, you know, screen capture. But the reason I'm playing this one, and it is long, it's an hour and 15 minutes, is that Sansar and Somnium Space announced last week, if you remember, that they were merging their things. And I'm not quite sure what is where here, but basically they move in this episode into regions that are actually somnium space as opposed to Sansar. I think it's still a teleport procedure. I don't think you can sort of. Sansar does not tend to have uh, land that joins each other, if you see what I mean. So you go to a region, eventually you wear it out, and you have to teleport or jump to somewhere else. But it seems that if you're hyper jumping, as we would call it, you can now jump into somnium space locations as easily as other Sansar locations. For somebody, people who know me, for example, you can imagine that. Imagine it was easy enough that you could actually teleport from Second Life into an open sim grid, or from an open sim grid into Second Life. The mechanics are that easy. It doesn't always work, of course. Second Life are not going to allow freeloaders into a very carefully managed economic system, for example. But technically, the platforms aren't that different, but it couldn't be done at some point in time. Imagine, for example, Linden Lab, or rather Tilia, their subsidiary, wanted to make more money in other virtual worlds. There's nothing to stop them bringing their service into somewhere like OpenSim. You know, but they wouldn't be able to, they wouldn't be able to connect the two platforms, but you could certainly have the same wallet, if you see what I mean, things like that. So parts of interoperability are already possible, but not everything, obviously. Yeah, so I'm not quite sure where to go with this one. It's the last thing anyway. But as I say, it's a long thing. Right, that's the Sansar interface again. I recognise that. That will be something in space they've arrived in now by the look of it. I can't swear to it. I usually recognise something in space for the vast empty spaces that you've got to walk to get anywhere. But no, I think this is something in space. It's looking, it's just got that different look about it. Though technically, in Sansai, you could build. You could build a space that looked like something in space, and possibly in something in space you could build a Sansar. It's very hard to know. But anyway, I think this is great fun. So if you're browsing YouTube and want to check it out sometime, this is actually called the Sansar Voyage. And this, as I say, was up to episode 31. So there's plenty of stuff to look at back log, as it were, to look at there. Now, I was going to show a few funny things, but I'm not. Some of our old intros that I took up recently, but I'll save that for another time. I'm finally going to here's my reader, and this is the Mastodon feed, which you'll find at the Mal Burns main one, but it's at MetaWorld, and it's at mastodon.social. If you know Mastodon at all, you'll figure out how that works. Sometimes you need the at MetaWorld, sometimes you don't, and you can use backslashes and blah blah, various different ways of getting to it actually. Okay, so moving, the latest of course was Charlie Fink's podcast, which turned up yesterday. This is him, Robbie Abowitz and Ted Shulowitz looking at stuff. Their guest is Walter Parks, who's chairman and co-founder of Dreamscape VR.
This episode of our This Week in XR,
as its usual adverse at the beginning. It's 55 minutes this episode.
okay,
so
thank you.
They don't overmodulate.
For those of you on audio, which is pretty much everybody, we're trying to up our audio game. We heard you. I have a boom microphone now.
Charlie was having problems. He was too close to his condenser
Go back
microphone.
another 6 inches and it'll be
I wondered.
Yeah.
All right.
Back up.
Okay, well, they all live and learn, don't they? So, moving down the list, this is Blair Rano, not to be confused with the other Blair. I've interviewed him, in fact. This Blair is he's an indie game developer, but he created Lo-Fi, which is quite popular, Sandiris VR. And so this is an interview with him. It's from a program called Headshot, which actually sounds rather interesting, although frequently its interviewees, shall I say, are a mixed bunch. There's not something I particularly will be keen on listening to every week, kind of thing. But this is quite a good one. She's
Hey,
very
how's it
chatty.
going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
They do a bit of the informalities, I think is the word at the beginning, but then they
And like atmosphere, like things that you can't get from just like a flat screen. Well, you can get it from a flat screen, but like I mean, VR is really good at kind of conveying it, especially things like scale, right? Like you,
so technical stuff. Oh, plus links to various other episodes, but as I say, they're like Twitch streaming and sort of vaguely related stuff, but a bit specialised. Right, moving down. Before that, we had an a program. Episode, that's the word I want. Good grief. Of Between Realities podcast. Their guest was a chap called Rick Scarbest. Yeah, I must come across some very interesting, sort of unusual names on these things sometimes.
The power of this technology goes so far beyond what like the typical like table conversation about VR gives it credit for. Like we talk about it as like a useful tool or an immersive experience, but what we're talking about is like truly transformational.
It should be perfectly possible to trick your brain into any experience if your brain can already do that.
Okay, they've developed this new habit of taking extracts from their show and montaging little bites together at the beginning as the intro. Then they come on with the real show, which of course has the bites in later. Here they are.
Talk about anything.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I like being as authentic and without inhibition as possible.
I agree.
I must find a way to boost the size of these things on your screens at home, but it's all editorial anyway. Right, before that we had Fixing the Metaverse Problem, and this is interesting. Improbable company, this is their CEO, Herman Narella. They came out of Cambridge in the university in the UK here, and they're now based in London, and they're a commercial operation. But their technology was used by Hello Games, including for a world called Meta World, which fortunately did not, well, let's just say it did not come to be. But Hello Games still do quite a lot of interesting games, and the whole underlying system that Improbable have is very different from the ones that underlie Second Life, OpenSim, or even these web VR ones. It's just a very unique engine sort of thing that was developed many years ago in Cambridge, and has since come to be sold as a backbone, as it were, for some incoming virtual worlds. Anyway, Herman gives his spiel here, and he's always interesting. So we get a bit of highlight.
World, you have to give people something really new and really valuable, and doing that means expanding the scope of what virtual experiences can be. So what Improbable has spent years doing now, I mean a decade of our lives with iteration after iteration of technology, is making it possible to support not just 100 people in a space, but tens of thousands of people connecting from anywhere in the world on a mobile phone or a PC or a Mac, just by clicking a link, to jump into a world which isn't just a game, but is an environment that can support all of those people talking, speaking, singing in some cases, happy birthday in this example that you're showing me right now. Also interacting with each other in incredibly rich and social ways. And to make that possible, we have to handle orders of magnitude more information on the back end. So recently we did an event with Major League Baseball where we brought thousands of baseball fans into a virtual stadium all over the world. That type of thing takes billions of messages a second that all have to be delivered at low latency to hundreds of countries and have to be done in a way that can survive hackers or other problems. So building the infrastructure to build practical, useful, and valuable virtual worlds is fundamental to what we do and have done. Another aspect of what we do is we make it possible to have richer digital items. So an NFT is really great as a token of ownership, but it doesn't actually do anything, as I think a lot of people have said more loudly on Twitter recently than before. So we created a language called Metaverse Markup Language, and it's totally open source, it's MIT licensed, and it lets you build like a complicated, rich object, just using JavaScript and HTML that can describe something that can live in a game, or it can live in a web browser or anywhere else, and it can link to an NFT if you want. And those objects exist inside all of the worlds that are part of the M squared network, which Improbable has incepted for the partners.
Right, okay. Well, found a suitable place to pause that. As you can gather, very interesting stuff. It's only 42 minutes actually, but that guy really, he really is really eloquent. He gets a lot said and done in very short space of time when he's talking. So I'd really recommend that one. As I said, you can click on the link through my X account at X place at sorry. Find the link and it would take you there. Or alternatively, if you go to YouTube, you can just look at fixing the metaverse problem. I suppose it's recent enough; it will probably come up near the top. But anyway, a good listen. Right, moving back to Tuesday. Well, James, our favourite's back. Is it not? Is it not?
Yeah, it was good to see them back after quite a while, and it was a good discussion. I think my biggest takeaway is they talked about how Google's trying to get back into VR, and they said who's going to trust Google after they shut everything down with Cardboard, which I thought was a pretty good point.
Yeah,
Not sure I'd trust Google. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they had a virtual world.
Yeah.
Well, well, I keep thinking kindly, but it's not kindly. So it had another name, and it was quite popular. I mean, everybody from Ralph Costa and his 2.5D worlds, and and it was sort of more or less web world type sort of thing. It had a lot of potential, but because it wasn't immediately subscribed to by a couple of million people. They shut it down. I mean, Google's attitude is if it doesn't make a lot of bucks in 1 week, it's probably not going to be worth keeping it around for a while.
Yeah, that and Stadia, the cloud gaming platform, they shut down very abruptly. So I don't know that they have the trust in the industry to jump back into VR.
I think it's a bit like looking at Microsoft. They're donating open source stuff here or there. They're paying their dues, so to speak, and they're big. They're bound to do something. The same with the same has happened with the four-letter word people and Google here, and sort of the proof is in the pudding. I hate to say it, but if Google launch something now like that, they're competing in an already populated space. Like, we've had this problem with metaverse, the word, for the last couple of years. So firstly, they got to overcome the fact they're not first to it. Google used to be used to being first at it. And, they had some very worthwhile things they should have stuck with, but because it didn't take off in the vast way they wanted, they abandoned it. I think if Google come up with something and they stay the course with it and it's good and it works, then I'll be interested. But I'm not going to be interested in something they launch saying, hey, new toy from Google, get it while it's still here. We're selling out in 2 days. Discontinued stock, only available for 3 more days. I'm not interested. On the other hand, if I suddenly I look at something, an example of something that they have to be like. It'd have to be like hubs or VR chat. In other words, it's sort of self-contained, not tied in and dependent to other things so much. But also, it lasts long enough to prove it works. Or even the early Second Life, which had a small population at the beginning, but the creators were there, they were loving it, the word got around, and it built itself from there. And, there was actually no stopping it. It still grows now, the population is stable, but the changing demographics and things, it is still, in one aspect, it is still sort of growing. But nobody launched it on people and said, hey, you can have 50 people on a region here to talk with each other. The launch things for Lindenwold at the beginning really just showed a few artists who'd actually made galleries and statues and things in World that you could walk around. And very simple, like a big garden full of statues. But it took off from there. People realized they were being allowed to build whatever they want and create their own space. And a VR chat has taken off like that for sure. Although there's always been stories about Samsar being on the verge of disappearing, I think Samsar, which was actually started by Linden Lab, but was sold off quite a while ago now. I think Samsar is doing okay too. And actually, interestingly, Samsar, of course, share a banking system with Second Life called Tilia. Tilia, handles payments and stuff like that, and they handle it for both Linden Labs and the Samsar platform. So they've got, Tilia, of course, is also, although it's quite new, known as Tilia. I mean, as a branch of Linden Labs, it's well established. It's been around for ages. It's the thing that keeps the economy of Second Life going. So, some of these things, as I say, name it, a frame, I think, will make it. All these things are in the hands of the user, by and large, which is a bonus. But yeah, VR chat, hubs, frame, Second Life, doesn't count. It's so old, and OpenSim is pretty old. These are established platforms that you can dive into now and do pretty much what you want within the limits of the platform. A new platform can't offer you that. Even Somnium Space, which is now linked to Samsar, when it began, I didn't put much faith in it because as a separate entity, it didn't kind of have the magic and it didn't have the ease of use. So I think they're relying on Samsar to bring that, improve, the common interface together, so to speak. But anyway, I'm sort of rambling. Let me see. Oh yeah, we're about to finish anyway. But yeah, back on Tuesday, we had the VR Crewcast too, and this of course has got the guys from Mixed Realities in it.
We are live. What is going on, everyone? Oh no, Don's already in the chat. Don.
Well, yeah, a bit like a Zoom call, but looking about virtual reality, with familiar faces from other podcasts, really. And then the final one on Tuesday, Sunday was our show. Gosh, I recognise it. And talking of Somnium, but yeah, there's the headline we were talking about. Okay. So on Tuesday, this is a panel which is from the Games to Change conference. I'm pretty sure there were a lot of panels from there, but I was very selective in which ones I put here. This is actually on the future of creativity, advertising, and social change. And when I first saw this, I thought that sounds a wee bit boring, but actually it turned out to be a really interesting, if not overly long, panel discussion. It's 45 minutes basically, and
then when I was told who was on it, I have to admit I got a little intimidated when I looked at everybody's bios.
Well, you can imagine it's a...
The determined future policy for the space, R&D funding strategy around immersive specifically. That's my date. It can actually...
I'm trying to... Hang on, there's more than two of them. I'm pausing at the wrong place. Here we go. There's...
Always Picassos and so on. So today, I think the same might happen where if it's so easy to create a video game, then maybe we'll see different kinds of video games that the AIs cannot create yet.
That's amazing.
Obviously, they're talking AIs there as well, as does everybody these days. So that's it for the feeds there. And we finished with the web pages, and we finished with everything else. So we've actually finished with the show. James, anything to add after that marathon? I thought it was going to be a short show, but there's enough to keep us happy.
Is, right? No, just it was good to see the VR download people back again. I enjoy their insights and postulation about it. It is about pretty much the VR industry, hence their name, VR download. So they don't really do the virtual worlds that we enjoy.
No, it's one of the reasons that keeps me going, really, is the first, well, I'm not actually that happy just reading out news and gabbing over the blogs, but the conversations that are actually in the places, are what I like, even back in Second Life, but in OpenSim, places to visit, talking to the people behind them, and sort of being in the places and being able to jump to the places, even if they're not the same platforms. You've got to log out of one to log into the other, etc. But you're right. Obviously there's thousands of games around which have similar technologies behind them, so gamers are quite happy by and large with what they've got, lots of things. But and there's also immersive things on the web now. There's some good ones I will quite happily point out. But yeah, I think the key is, can I go in there and talk to people? And I don't just mean have voice enabled and hear them saying, hello, hello, how's it going today? How's it going today? Not that anybody would talk like that, of course. But, serious conversation that you can have. VR Chat does that. Sansar does that. OpenSim here, where we broadcast from, does that. And Second Life, good old Second Life does that too. That's where the magic is. And, after 2 years of finally the M word is not being used so much. And there's enough going on that is outside the big corporations to be of interest. But certainly, I remember when a few years ago this news section, we had Maria Kolarov with us at the time, and half the program was 20 new headsets of the week. How many headsets did you need? And we've still not reached the point where a headset is ubiquitous, So these things come and go. There are now a select number of headsets on the market, nothing like there were a couple of years ago, but the ones that are good enough have probably won the game for now. So yeah, well, not to go on about it, but yeah, it depends on the overlap. If you're listening to a show like Upload VR, they do obviously come from that gaming background quite a lot. They are interested in VR as a whole concept, but they're intelligent. They talk pretty intelligently about the stuff, So there's a great deal of overlap. I mean, if gamers get sick in helmets, so are casual users in a virtual world going to. The issues that come up, for example, like, because that's one that came up today, are kind of common to all these things. But you're right. I think I'm not absolutely entranced by every edition of VR download, or between realities for that matter. I tend to go much more for like a couple of ones I showed here today, where there were panel discussions. Where those are great because they're not just an interview. There's a sort of free flow between several different people, and you get a kind of, even though the structured ones have a sense of an organic flow, because one person will be feeding off the previous person's thoughts, etc. But you got me at it again, James.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't ask me questions.
Mm-hmm.
What do I think? Oh, you want to know what I think? 1, 2, 3, 4, take off.
Off we go.
Oh dear, absolutely, absolutely. Let's have a thunderstorm. Oh, there it is. And thank you, folks. I think that's our cue to go. So, with closing remarks there from James, we will be back same time, same place next week. Yes, definitely. And we'll be having a couple of weeks off at various points after that. I'm totally confused here. Yeah, but we'll be back same time, same next place with similar sorts of news. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hope we're being useful. That's what I say. Hope there's somebody out there watching. Or is it, what's that Pink Floyd refrain? Is there anybody out there? Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Well, silence is gold. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back next week. For now, it's a wrap. Bye for now.